It felt.
For a while.
I saw sauce.
Your choice.
It was like spilling.
Oh.
You don't smell it? The high cholesterol.
No.
I do.
I just cooked for you're not like a kid. I'll go take some Worcester sauce. And like, oh, that's the point.
Worcestershire sauce.
Yes.
Really?
Worcester.
Ew.
Worcester.
It's
Oh,
the
same
same
thing.
I've never heard somebody pronounce it like that, though.
What is it pronounced then?
I think it's like Worcestershire sauce.
Worcestershire?
It's
I've heard like 10 different ways.
I don't know why choose to not say that word for multiple reasons.
Worcester.
Worcester, that's what you call it.
Worcester. Wait.
I don't think you're saying it right.
Worcestershire. That's how I've always said it.
Wait, Worcester. Yeah, Worcester.
No, why? What the fuck?
How do you pronounce Worcester sauce?
I think it depends on what part of the country you're from. Worcestershire.
Yeah.
That's the way Bugs Bunny did it.
Feel like the car kind of there. Yeah, buddy. $1,500 for the Ranger. Look at the price.
I'm up in.
Blue Book is at least 6.
I'd do 6.
I want 20.
20.
Yeah.
Are you a dealer? Your dealership?
No, that's what I want. I'm not saying anybody will pay it, but that's what I want.
We all have.
Pay all the saddle train to have her. Get it have her.
There you go.
Saddle train have her with a buggy.
So, I mean, I'd have to run around, find a vehicle. That takes time, energy. Hoping to do that slowly over the summer.
Get one of the halter tire on my neck. My wife said, "That's all. Have her take me by the wind. You know, wherever she goes."
Yeah.
To
There's that.
the tree line. They go get like that one cow that was on the world record fastest cow. Of a whopping 5 miles per hour.
I think I can walk faster.
Oh, no, but
You could certainly move faster. Walking would be a challenge.
I don't.
You can only, walking, you have to have both feet on the ground.
You have to fully extend your knee too.
Yep, and all that
There's a whole
stuff.
bunch of. But
So,
I watched girls speed walk the mile in like 7 minutes. I was like, I can't even run it at that pace. I'm so serious. I'm watching my own life.
so what is that? 7 minutes?
That's
That's
what
8 miles.
Walking.
That's 8 miles an hour. That's me.
Really, running mile.
I think I did what, high school and full football equipment. I think I did yeah.
You seem like a baseball kind of guy.
You probably did both.
Quarterback?
No. Offensive lineman.
Yeah, Cody.
I was what, 50 pounds lighter. So we had an unbalanced line, agile thing. So people that can move fast is what they cared about.
Huh.
And my coach is like, had him for history as a junior. He thought I was a genius just because I listened to what he had to say. He'd give us the exam the day before with the answers. You wake up that day and pay attention and you just spit it back the next day. And he thought I was a genius. I'm like, okay. Nap time Beatty was his nickname around the school. Could sleep through most of the semester. There you go.
I for Gary Tom 305.
Okay. So kidneys. So you could go into a whole lot of depth and a whole lot of detail on kidneys. We're going to stick to the basics. So we said the basic structure is we've got a cortex and a medulla, and different parts of the kidney have slightly different functions. So we have in ours, we have a continuous cortex that runs all the way around that shape. With our cattle, we have discrete lobes that repeat over and over and over again. As we said, we've got a blood supply going to that kidney. You've got a venous return, but you're going to split the blood into perfectly fixed or treated blood. And then all the waste is going to end up in the ureter and go to the bladder. So the functional unit in a kidney is called the nephron. Nephron is your place where the blood is separated, where the blood is cleaned, where the blood is maintained. And you've got probably millions of them in each kidney. So if we look at it, the way the nephron is organized, we start out at one part, we have a loop that goes down from the cortex into the medulla, back up, and then empties out into the ureter. So all the nephrons are connected to the ureter at some point. Getting into more detail, this is a nephron. So we have a blood supply coming in, we have a capillary bed that forms. The front part of the nephron, the Bowman's capsule, surrounds that capillary bed called the glomerulus. From there, we extract pretty much everything but the blood cells from the blood. So what you've got leaving this capillary bed is just a sludge with just enough plasma to move those cells to the next capillary bed. So you have all that plasma, all the electrolytes, all the proteins, hormones, all that stuff is collected in the Bowman's capsule. It's going to run through the proximal convoluted tube. Then when we get the border between the cortex and medulla, we transfer to the loop of Henle. We go down, we come back up, we cross back into the cortex. We have the distal convoluted tubule. That's going to drain into a collecting tubule, and all kinds of nephrons are connected there. And then we drain out into the common ureter at the end of it. So again, that's kind of the orientation. So you've got millions of them set up in a kidney, hundreds if not thousands in each of those lobes. So here's another diagram of the same thing. Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tube. Well, yes.
All the like little, it's the same. teaching.
The same.
Like all the nephrons have the weird loopy thing. And
Yep.
they all connect.
A common collecting tubule. Yep, so there'd be multiple here, just like in that last diagram. Another nephron's attached here, and one's attached here, one's there, one's there, one's there. So they all connect there. And you got lots of little squiggly lines, hence the name convoluted. So Bowman's capsule, proximal, convoluted. Why do we call it proximal? Anybody want to guess? It's closer. It's the first one we come to. Whereas the distal one is after the loop of Henle. So proximal, loop of Henle, distal, and then a collecting tube, which is going to collect from every spot. So you've got different parts of each of those. We're not going to get into that detail, but I like this diagram. It shows things that are probably a little bit more anatomical, more anatomically correct than the other ones. So You've got lots of collecting tubules with lots of nephrons sticking over, all are gonna empty out into that ureter at the bottom. What happens is those two diagrams there were simplified, is that the nephron is surrounded by a secondary capillary bed. So you've got blood supply coming in. So different arteries, A is for artery there, V is for veins. You work up to the glomerulus, that's a capillary bed. We've got a portal shunt here. They're calling it afferent arteriole, and we open up into another capillary bed that surrounds the nephron. So in that first capillary bed, we've gotten rid of most of the plasma. That second capillary bed, we're coming in trying to collect as much of that back as we can. So what do you think stays in the nephron? All the stuff that we don't want, the marble chips on the floor. So there's an active process where the nephron is removing all the things it wants to put back in the blood, pulls it out of the nephron back into the capillary beds, and then we go back, the venous blood works its way back to the heart. Everybody with me so far? So if we look at, and you should have this thing in there, we stretch everything out. Let's take a look at how things function. We're going to lay things out, and we're going to take the nephron and we're going to stretch it out flat. So we have the Bowman's capsule, glomerulus. PCT is what? Proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, collecting duct, ureter goes to the bladder. We have the whole blood coming in, goes into this capillary bed, comes out, and then we stretched out the capillary bed that surrounds the nephron down here. That's going to go back to the heart. So we've got whole blood, one coming in. We've got the bladder and the heart returns going out. One in, two out. So whole blood comes in. Most of what ends up in the nephron is plasma. None of the cellular elements, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, the platelets do not leave that capillary bed. Everything else, proteins, you're kind of sketchy on, but all the electrolytes, all the sugars, all the hormones, all of the nutrients, all leave and end up in this plasma. Yes. Yes, we're getting to that. So at the start of the nephron, we have pretty much just plasma. What we have leaving from the capillary bed is sludge, the red blood cells, and just enough plasma to keep it moving. Now, what we want to do is take all the stuff that we still want, and we have to take it from here in the nephron back to that capillary bed. Put it back in the blood supply. So everything's going to move from one side to the other. Anything that the nephron says, hey, we need that, they're going to pull out of the nephron, and they're transporters for everything we want to keep, and get put back into the capillary bed. So by the time you get down here, you've got reconstituted and clean blood. Everything that's not wanted or needed is going to end up down in the bladder. So anything that's needed is usually a solute. It's active on some level. The body expends energy, has carriers, takes work to move the solutes from the nephron back to the inside the capillaries to reconstitute that blood. Then water is going to follow passively there. There are no transporters, no pumps, no anything for water. So what is this? Water follows solute, right? We're actively moving solute from the nephron back to the capillary, and then water follows. This is one of the places where we can get some very wide discrepancies in hypertonicity. And that helps the kidney do its job, and that's as far as we'll go here. Otherwise, that's graduate level understanding. We don't need to know that to manage our cows. So anywhere the nephron is, you have various carriers that are going to take stuff out of the nephron and put it back in this capillary bed. So that's why everything's intertwined, so we don't have that far to go. So solutes are actively moved. All the electrolytes, all the hormones, glucose, all those things are taken out of the nephron and put back into the bloodstream in the correct proportions, the right amounts. And then anything that's left over, like an extra piece on your jigsaw puzzle, that ends up in the bladder. So messing with your friends. So taking rifampicin, has anybody ever taken that before? Not, it's not very common. It's a very strong antibiotic. Will cause certain bodily fluids such as urine and tears to become orange red in color. A benign side effect which can be frightening if it is not expected or prepared for. What?
Got any?
Not on me, no. So, what I had a group of guys that we'd go camping on a regular basis in and around high school and college. And one guy was back from Alaska, and the other guy from Colorado goes, "Hey, Mooney, I want to get this into the guy from California. How can we do it?" Since I know the guy from Alaska really, really well, I'm like, I bet you can't fit this whole donut in your mouth at once. So my friend from Colorado had this or something similar to it. And we crushed it up on the one side of the donut, put it in there. We made sure that went into his mouth first. And he naturally proved, because he calls himself the goat, he can eat anything. So messing with his vanity or whatever. Yeah, I can fit that in my mouth. So we went from there to a camping trip out in January. We used to go camping all the time, all year round. And nature called at some point. He went to write his name in the snow. And me and the kid from Colorado are laughing our asses off. And he's out behind the lean-to, starts screaming his head off. Part of the problem was he had slipped and fell on some of the snow and took a real hard shot to the back. So he thought he'd done something bad to his kidneys. And he's like screaming and "Wah!" And so we had, after we got done laughing, we said, no, we just dosed you. So if you're looking at this antibiotic or any antibiotic, how does that fit with what I've taught you about the kidney function?
Because it's got to filter it through. Can go out the bladder if it's.
Why? Why does it go out the bladder?
Because isn't the antibiotic take off out all the toxins in the body?
Nope. Antibiotics stop microbial growth. What happens when it gets to the kidney? Does, but why? Nope. Antibiotics. Nephron goes, what the hell is that? I don't know what to do with that. That's not natural. That doesn't belong here. I'm not putting it back in the blood. So that's the problem with penicillin and all those things. In fact, in some of the early studies, they were collecting the urine from these early test patients to concentrate that penicillin because it's still good. They're going to reconstitute, dry it out, reconstitute that penicillin, and give it to another patient until we learn to manufacture it again. So this is the middle of World War II when we're learning how to do all this stuff. But the nephron says, I don't know what to do with an antibiotic. I know what to do with electrolytes. I know what to do with glucose. I take it from here, I put it over here. I don't know what that is, and it just goes down to the bladder. So that's why we have to keep taking our doses of penicillin, because all of it gets lost in the urine. So there's nothing in the body that says, oh, I'm in charge of penicillin. I will move that from here to here and we'll be fine. So that just happens to have a red color. His eyes were all red and tears were red and all that stuff because I guess we gave him a fairly good dose. I guess in retrospect, it's a good thing he wasn't my other friend who's allergic to penicillin. We didn't think that all the way through. So messing with your friends, the antibiotic doesn't have a recognition. It's not actively moved back. It's lost with all of the waste. So here's some specific spots in the nephron where stuff moves. So stuff leaving through the kidneys, stuff that's put into the nephron and actively put out of the body in some way, shape, or form. If we don't have the right amount, we got too much potassium, we've got too much acid, we've got too much ammonia or ammonium, urea, all that stuff can be put into the nephron and not brought back. So actively managing the solutes. Stuff that is saved by the kidneys. We have all kinds of transport systems that are going to pull that stuff out, put it back in the blood. So bicarb, water, urea, electrolytes, minerals, all have specific spots, specific places where they are saved. Has anybody been to like a big recycling center where they bring in stuff by the dumpster load? They put it on a conveyor and you have a bunch of people pulling stuff out to save. And then you have at the other end of it, just everything that's not useful. So you have people on the line pulling out metal, pulling out, this is good. The place I saw was a construction waste. They're pulling out boards. They're pulling out anything that can be used, recycled, chipped up, turned into another product that's helpful. So these are all things that are being saved by the body, at least on some level. Now, there are times where we might have too much salt, might have too much potassium. It might go the other way. We have all our nutritional substances. Glucose, amino acids, vitamins, proteins are all pulled back, put back into that plasma. So there's a lot of things happening in a nephron. And how it does it gets really, really complicated. It took me probably 4 or 5 physiology classes to really figure it out. And I'm not sure I had it perfectly correct either, but it's part of my doctoral dissertation. I had to figure it out. So that's that diagram there. So this is up here to show you some of the osmotic measurements that you'll see. So we start out beginning of the nephron we got mostly plasma. We're at close to isotonic, that 300 level. The cortex is more or less isotonic. As we dip down into the medulla, as we go deeper and deeper into that, we're going to get more and more concentrated. So hyperosmotic, milliosmoles, 2,400 milliosmoles. That's way hypertonic compared to the blood. So you've got things going up, things going down. This is about setting things up. Salt is moved actively. The highlights. Water's going to follow passively, depending on where it is. So if you're here, this is hypotonic to this. So water's going to move out as things go back. As things go back up, water's going to move back in. And then really where we get the separation is over here in the collecting duct. And that's under the influence of the hormone vasopressin or ADH. And we'll talk about how that works. Yes. Yes. The color change is any of the ketones that you got aceto acetate. We'll talk about that when we get to ketosis. What are the other ones? So the body, again, the nephron doesn't know what to do with those ketones. We really don't need those. Get rid of them. They show up in the urine, and then we measure them with that strip. That strip reacts with the ketones that are there. So they are part of a error in metabolism, and they accumulate and cause problems. Our job is to stop that from happening. Ketones are lipophilic, so they can diffuse anywhere in the body easily. So they're going to leave the liver where they're manufactured. They're going to spread throughout the body. They're going to cause brain problems. They're going to cause muscle problems. And when they get to the kidney's nephron says, I don't know what to do with this. Get rid of it. So it ends up in the urine. Yes. As in the bladder, you can't empty your bladder? Or is that what you're talking about?
The kidneys.
You're going to start to put pressure on this system. You're going to get back pressure on the nephrons. So that's probably going to stretch them and or force water out where you don't want forced water out. So it's that osmotic pressure. Now, instead of having osmosis to go wherever it wants to balance out the inside and the outside, you're going to have another pressure element there that's going to mess things up. Is that right? I don't know. Sounds logical. I'm not a nephrologist. So again, we're looking at nephron coming in. Everything goes out. Water and electrolytes are illustrated here as going back and forth. We start with the different blood supplies coming in, and things are put back into that blood supply surrounding that nephron. So it's just another look at what's there. If we think about antidiuretic hormone, it's going to have its influence on the collecting duct, the last part of the nephron. So you've got multiple collecting ducts. ADH or vasopressin is released when we start to dehydrate. When I used to work for my dad, my job was stacking the bales at the end. My dad liked the way I stacked bales. I don't know why, but being able to walk across that top layer of small square bales and not fall through is helpful as the winter goes on. So, but we had on the barn, we had a black slate roof. So that means as we got through the summer, I'm getting closer and closer to that black slate roof. So you're looking at 110, 100 degrees up there in New Jersey, pretty high humidity. So I'm between loads coming in, small square bales, I'm running down to the milk house, basically suck on the water hose, getting as much water in as I can, and then going up and doing the next load. So just trying to replace that water. So I'm drinking gallons of water as we go through the day. But what is my urine volume? I don't have to go to the bathroom, right? Has anybody ever experienced that? You're sweating so much, drinking so much, it's coming out your pores, not your bladder. That's under the control of vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone, ADH. So when you start to get low blood volume, little thicker blood, the brain sends a signal to the posterior pituitary. It releases ADH. If you've got no antidiuretic hormone, the walls of the collecting duct are not open. They do not allow water to go through. So the rumen is one place. This is another place where water does not follow solute. So until we get ADH, antidiuretic hormone present, that will open things up. So whatever water comes into this collecting tubule will go out of the collecting tubule because it's been opened up by vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone. Where does that water go?
Blood.
Back to the blood. So instead of losing that water like you normally would, you've got stuff going back to the blood where it needs. So with ADH here, water does follow solute. Without, it does not. With, it does. So you're going to have a very dark, concentrated urine at the end, very low in volume. So if you've ever, the days that we did hay, you're drinking ridiculous amounts of water and you may have to go to the bathroom once. And it's usually much darker, concentrated, and by definition, with a lack of water, hypertonic. So for those interested, this is probably more than we want to go through here, but ADH comes from the posterior pituitary at the base of the brain, flows through, goes to the kidney. It's going to act on that collecting tubule. So ADH is going to be released based on arterial pressure. If your blood pressure goes down, or you get a big cut, or you just donated blood or something like that, the pressure is going to go down, tells the pituitary, save the water. You might have different receptors that are going to measure osmolality in the blood as that goes up. It says, hey, we need to conserve more water. ADH is released. Sodium can also influence that hunger, the water intake. Osmoreceptors can also influence the release of ADH, sometimes called vasopressin. So from the posterior pituitary to the collecting tubule in the kidney. So if we were going to summarize, what do the kidneys do? How do the kidneys work? What's the best way to say that?
Blood by.
Okay. They're gonna, that's part of the problem. But we go back to what we said at the beginning. We're not here to make marble chips. We're here to make Michelangelo's David. We're here to maintain the blood. So the kidneys focusing on maintaining the blood the way it needs to be. And it does it by separating everything out and then bringing back what it wants to, bringing back what we need to create that perfect blood again. Any questions on kidneys? So next time we will revisit hypertonic saline again and talk about what that does. We've given that, we know how the kidneys work. If anybody wants to stick around, we got some more accepted student letters to sign. I can give you some extra credit related to your exam if you want to do this. Pass them around. There's only 16 of them. So
Oh,
it's
perfect.
really quick.
Face for me.
Hi, Rosie.
You're good.
Are you going to the, dairy?
Yes, we already left that.
My cousin wants first, but.
I ate my lunch during this class. These are the ones that I've done.
I suppose I was eating 3. At least grab a Gatorade, grab that stuff, so that way I'm not exactly stuff for it. Very complex. Where are you parked, Rosie?
There's no fucking bargains.
All right.
You separate the piles, man.
Oh, I don't know where you want.
Paper feels so nice.
Right.
I didn't get one of these and I'm still a little salty about it.
I didn't either. Don't feel bad. Thanks.
I've had to sign 8 million of them now, and I didn't get a single one.
Like I put see where they're from. Look at that envelope. Bronx. What?
Yeah. But none of them are from there.
Yeah, we're doing from the North Country.
I think that one somewhere new. Himrod, never heard of it. That's what it said.
From Himrod,
Bronx.
Illinois. Why, I'm from Illinois.
I don't know. I tell people from New York I go to Morrisville, and they go, where?
My grandpa.
See, I find that so strange because since I was like 5, I knew of Morrisville.
Well, no one knows what Morristown, so yes, I do. You know where Morristown is? Yes.
Way up.
You know, what are you doing up in my neck of the woods?
Bronx again.
Well, fishing?
Been up there for camping.
It's nice up there. It's up with grizzly bears. Let's go.
Bronx again.
St. Lawrence County.
St. Lawrence County, the North Country.
Yeah, that's where we go, St. Lawrence County.
You hear about that Little Caesars machete massacre out in water?
Corona, New York.
Virus. Alright. You're part time.
Why don't you just,
Where are the
no,
first?
why don't you just ride and I'll drop you off on the way back?
Thanks for. Oh, yeah. Okay. Brandon's on like,
It's time for another cup.
I think I agreed. Let's get the lecture maybe Thursday. I don't agree.
What are you doing? Okay, fine.
For the first.
I told.
Dining room? Yeah. Do you need these ones?
That's right. Have a good day.
Yeah. Get over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need a better one.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out a new line.
Did you want it? Did you sign or not? Did you sign?
Oh,
There you go.
Very.
I think so, yeah. Our next class is at 2.
Mhm.
Okay, then I should have time. This last one. Right, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is it raining out?
Yeah, a little bit.
Except for me.
Are you gonna go? Thanks.